Good evening. It is Tuesday, January 20th, and we are here for the Policy Committee meeting of the National Board of Education. It is 6:02 p.m., and I am calling the meeting to order. I'm present, Heather Raymond. Mr. Johnson is here.
Here.
Ms. Lampier.
Here.
We have Mr. Posca, and we have Dr. Scarpati. I think I always say your name wrong. Scarpetti? Scarpati. It is Scarpati. Okay, yay. Welcome, Dr. Scarpati. All right, great. And so Dr. Scarpati has come because we have brought JLCAA toilet training back from where we had sent it to the full board to have a little bit more discussion. And my apologies to the group. I was not there for that board meeting at the end of November, but I understand that some of the board meeting members had some questions and concerns about the policy. So do you want to reiterate what the concerns were, Ms. Lampier, and then we can have Dr. Scarpati speak to it? Or do you want to just go into Dr. Scarpati?
Why doesn't Dr. Scarpati go first?
Okay.
Sure. Thank you, and thank you for being open to a discussion on this. This was raised by the elementary principals this fall or over the summer. I think it was this fall for consideration. Some other districts do have a policy of this nature. I think what we've seen is post-COVID, we've seen an increase in students showing up for kindergarten who are not toilet trained. And in this, we're not referring to students that are not trained because of a disability, a developmental delay, or a medical issue, but just haven't trained yet, haven't gone through that process, and are wearing pull-ups. Again, we're not talking about the occasional accident that happens in the early grades and is really typical, but this refers to students who are coming for kindergarten in pull-ups and with an expectation that they be toileted at school. The impetus for having a policy, kind of a couple of pieces we're hoping this could accomplish. One is that it sets the expectation for families and for the community at large that this is an expectation for entering kindergarten. It has historically been an expectation for entrance to kindergarten that that's a milestone that happens prior to the start of kindergarten. That's within, developmental norms to have occurred. Again, excluding students that are not trained due to a medical issue or a disability. Having a policy also helps to protect staff who are involved in changing students. It can be a really uncomfortable position for a staff member who may not even be someone who works with that student regularly to then be involved in assisting them in the bathroom or changing them. We don't have staffing in kindergarten for this need. If a student has an IEP and it's in their IEP that they need assistance with changing, obviously there's staff slated to provide that service, or if it's a medical, documented medical need, the nurse would be slated to that. But for this kind of category that we're talking about of need, there aren't staff that are designated to do that, so it often defaults to either pulling a paraprofessional from one of our sub-separate programs to assist, or it's the principal or the assistant principal doing it. And it can be an uncomfortable situation. So we just want to make sure that there is a policy, a procedure, a clear communication to families that if your child does need toileting, this is what happens, so that staff are also protected in that moment. It also, I think, helps students because it's, I imagine, also uncomfortable for students if their principal is assisting them with toileting, probably not their idea of how they want to spend their afternoon either. And then thirdly, if we are able to kind of set this policy, this expectation, it assists us in communicating proactively to families this winter and spring as we start the kindergarten registration process, that we can get this out both to families as they register and to daycare providers so that they understand this is the expectation, they can assist with it. And it would also help us in that communication to families to be able to say, if your child isn't yet toilet trained, please be working on that. If you feel that there may be a medical concern or a developmental delay, these are the steps of what you would do to begin to address that. Because sometimes that is the underlying issue, and it's really hard when that process doesn't start until school starts, and then we might be looking at November, December before there's a concrete plan in place, as opposed to if that conversation is able to happen in February, March, April, a student who has an underlying concern may be able to come into kindergarten with a proactive plan in place so that the staff are prepared and have staff assigned to assist with that. So we're hoping it might be able to ease some of those pieces. One feedback that I believe we had talked about after the last board meeting was eliminating preschool from this and just have it read students entering kindergarten. So that was one piece that we felt would be maybe simplify it.
If we eliminate preschool from the policy, would the district then have to ramp up staffing at the preschools? Because my understanding is that toileting assistance is not something that the regular paras do. It's something only district-wide paras do. Is it only district-wide paras at the preschool?
I believe that's correct, that it is all district-wide paras at the preschool.
Okay.
And we certainly could leave that in. I do also believe that the ratio of students on IEPs to students that do not have IEPs in preschool is far different than in a kindergarten classroom. So we have more staff available there.
Okay. I don't think it's unreasonable for a 3-year-old, because that's the age that they are eligible to start preschool.
Correct.
I think that's within the realm of developmentally normal to still be working on this. 5 is less so. I don't know. For me, because I come from the child protective background and my professional experiences with child sexual abuse, having various adults that might be different adults helping a child with their toileting need and their private parts sends a confusing message to children at the developmental age when it's time to start talking about tricky people and keeping your private parts private. And it makes me very uncomfortable to put both children and our staff in that position outside of an IEP that very clearly lays out what the rules are. It just makes me uncomfortable, and I worry about even having the assistant principal help. Like, that's not in her job description, so I worry about potential grievances as well if we're pulling in random staff members to work outside of their job description.
Okay, so let me start by saying that because we're a public school, we can't turn away children that aren't toilet trained.
No.
Right, and this says that children entering preschool, kindergarten, or other grades in the Nashua district schools must be toilet trained before attending school. So it might give parents the impression that their untrained child cannot attend preschool or kindergarten, and that is not true.
So just to be clear, state law says first grade. We're required to take everyone in first grade. Kindergarten is still voluntary and optional.
For toilet training?
In general. School. For attendance.
So we will turn away children that aren't potty trained?
I would say we wouldn't be violating the law if we did that.
I don't think that's the
Unless
intent
they have an IEP
here.
or 504 already.
Because, if we're not going to turn the children away, then the policy that we're thinking about putting in to practice would be untrue, because it says children must be toilet trained before attending a school. And I don't want to put a policy in that we start off by the very first sentence is not something that we're going to follow. I mean, I agree that it is inappropriate for a child to not be potty trained before, kindergarten. It's not ideal. And, but I also know that we've talked about, big P versus small p policy here a lot. And I think that you guys could go ahead and set this expectation without us putting it into a big P policy. And I also think that the teachers and staff at the school, their issues are wondering who is going to be the ones doing the changing, assisting in the toileting and stuff. And that's not something that this policy addresses. So it's not solving the problem that the elementary schools are having.
It does set the expectation of what that environment looks like, the universal precautions, 2 adults, discrete environment, contact of the parent. So it does put some safeguards in there that at least set an expectation of what that would look like on the staff end. I agree with you, and I would not want a student turned away. Oftentimes, students that come in with something like this, it could be a flag for some underlying issues, whether emotional, medical, or developmental. So I do think kind of setting that expectation and having that conversation as early as possible is really helpful, but I would not want them to not attend. I wonder if it could be phrased as, instead of students must, but it is expected that students be toilet trained. Just to get some language in regarding A, it's an expectation, B, if something does happen, this is how we handle it, but does not indicate that they would not be enrolled.
Well, then I think about the kids who do, like you said, the kids who have developmental disabilities or whatever that haven't been diagnosed yet, because sometimes it's hard to get diagnoses. There's not that many, pediatricians in the state who are, who specialize in that field of developmental disabilities. And, there are going to be some kids in that category. And if we have this saying that even if they're just expected to be toilet trained, there might be some parents who are made aware of this policy who feel that means their child cannot attend school.
Mm-hmm. So I would say by not having a policy, we aren't having a reason to reach out to parents. Like, without a policy, we can't say to parents when they register in April, hey, make sure our expectation is that your child is toilet trained. And if they're not, let's talk about resources, right? Because when they register, that's the time to help them find the resources. Not in September when they show up for school a week after Labor Day. The time to help them find the resources is when they're registering.
Do we need this policy in order to have that conversation?
I think we do, but I also think that the policy allows us to then also have that conversation with all of the other daycare providers and our community partners out there, so that they can be working with parents as well. Because right now, my understanding from staff is that there is not a single school of all of our 12 elementary schools that has not had students who are not identified showing up completely not potty trained at all. Mm-hmm. And so to me, that says to me that something has shifted in our society, that this is becoming more common. And unless schools make policies, parents won't know that that's not, you know what I mean? We need something that says when you register for kindergarten, this is our expectation. We used to have kindergarten readiness checklists that we handed out. Those have kind of gone by the wayside.
Why? Why couldn't we just do that?
That's a good question. I think part of it is because the developmental tasks on those are not the same as they used to be. Mm-hmm. Right? It used to be you have to be able to tie your shoes and, walk on your own and to school on your own. There was a whole list. If you Google it, the Department of Education still has some. I think that list has gotten slowly eroded until now kids are coming completely unprepared to recognize our physical signs.
Yeah, and to your point, I think sometimes administrators feel uneasy saying to a parent, this is an expectation without the support of the board. Because if they say that and then the parent pushes back and is like, well, they're not going to be, you don't really have anything to stand on. So it's a request from our administration at the elementary level, given the challenges that they've faced. I think it, has the ability to help us to decrease the frequency of this issue and to get ahead of some issues. I think part of it would need to be really thoughtful, proactive communication with families and local providers, as well as pediatricians. I do think there are more students who should be going through our early identification process than are. I think pediatricians, the community, local providers miss some students who probably should have been referred at age 3 and who show up at age 5 or 6 with none of those early interventions and supports in place, which is hard for the student, the family, and the school at that point. And then again, to put some protections in place for our staff. But
Would you guys want to add anything about who is responsible for changing the child into this policy?
So I would say that if the child has a 504 IEP, that the expectation is that will be followed, because it's clearly written in there what it is.
Correct.
For every other student, we don't have staff who are guaranteed to be available to take this on as their job. We just don't. We would have to have a person who's required to do that, because our district-wide paras are already paired with the child that they are required to be with based on IEP needs. So that leaves the school nurse or the assistant principal or someone else, depending on the day. Like if we said in the policy, it must be the school nurse or the assistant principal, what if another child is having a medical emergency down the hall? So now you have one child who's sitting in a soiled clothing, waiting for them to be ready, or for the parent to come pick them up.
I mean, maybe being I don't like the first sentence about must be toilet trained before attending a school, because I know that's not true. But if we can take that out and then state that we don't have the staff to change diapers and that the child might need to have multiple people helping them, be really clear and specific about it.
So I did like Dr. Scarpati's suggestion of changing the first line to, I've changed what you've suggested a little bit. In the absence of a developmental delay or physical or mental disability, it is the expectation that students entering preschool, kindergarten, or other grades in the Nashua School District be toilet trained before attending school. So that says it's our expectation that they be toilet trained.
Yeah.
And I'm neutral on preschool, because most of our kids in preschool have their 504 IEPs. Does that address your concerns? Because it takes away the must, but it sets up the expectation.
Yeah, I like having that must really. I still think that it might that some parents might believe that if their child isn't toilet trained, they can't come to school.
Should we add a line in there? Because the next line is trained, implies that the student has control, et cetera. Should we add another line that says, if something about assisting them to find support, right? Like the district.
Yeah,
for-
if you say that if a child is not toilet trained.
Right, for families who are, who are, I don't know. I have to think about the wording.
Something like if you believe your child may have a medical or developmental need in this area, it is recommended that you either contact your school principal or your child's physician, something like that.
Yeah, I think you can't say you, we'd have to make it neutral. So something along the line of, Parents or guardians of students who are struggling with toilet training.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I also still
Not
think,
achieved or not concerned about, parents or guardians who have concerns about toilet training should contact.
yeah, because I think of people too that might be working 2 or 3 jobs and their child is getting shunted around from one person to another, and they're not home enough to give them the attention they need to potty train them. And someone like that should also be getting help from someone. I don't know who.
Right?
Right.
Well, I think that I'm actually thinking there might be a couple options out with community partners, right? So parents, guardians who have concerns about toilet training should contact the school principal or their family pediatrician. Does that cover
think
it?
so.
Because I feel like those are the two best people to point them in the right direction.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Of course, if you're registering for kindergarten, do you know who your school principal is going to be?
Well, I think through this process, it also allows us to kind of work with our staff at the Welcome Center about some of these next steps and what those directions should be.
Okay.
And I think that's, all along, I think that's really just want to not only create those expectations, but also start working with the families early about what these concerns and what these needs may be. And I think that's the bigger step here. And I think that's what our principals have kind of started, have kind of brought this forward because they're seeing an increase in these number of issues and try to get ahead of it as opposed to kind of as Dr. Scotty pointed out, now all of a sudden it's November, December, we're still dealing with it. Have a plan coming in September.
Right, that's my worry too, is these poor kids who, the families knew in June, right, that they weren't going to make it or July, right? That it's not going well, they're not going to make it. But then they have to wait until September to start the process of getting services, and then it's November, December before the IEP is done, and then it's January before we hire someone to help,
Yeah, I think that rewriting it in this way would make it a less punitive and more of an offer of help for the families.
yeah, I mean, because we want it to be successful, but we also want to have the tools to help them before,
Yeah.
as they need it, as opposed to having the delay.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay. And then we'll keep the new,
Ms. Raymond, could you repeat that line at the end of the paragraph that you are
Yeah.
recommending to add?
it says, manage self-care with no assistance in the bathroom. Parents, guardians who have concerns about toilet training should contact their school principal or their family pediatrician. And then the next paragraph, I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson?
No, go ahead.
Okay. The next paragraph, it says, every attempt is made to a discreet. I would like to kind of reorder the next things to say, in the event a child needs assistance with toileting or changing in the schools or while at school, every attempt is made to maintain a discreet environment, period. And then the next sentence would be, one adult will assist the student with a second adult nearby. Because to me, having 2 adults is really important because it protects everybody.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think that last sentence could be part of that second paragraph too. If there's a situation where it's, the level of cleanup is really high or there's just not 2 staff members that can do it that day, it's going to be a call for dismissal or for the parent to come assist with the change, and then the child could stay.
Because now this becomes, the first paragraph is, we have the expectation that you will do your best to get them trained, and if not, we're here to help you. The second paragraph is, when there's an incident, here's how we handle it. And then the third paragraph is, there may be times when we need to call the parent. Now, do we want to make it an expectation that the parent gets called every time a child has a toileting issue? As a parent, I think I think many kids have accidents throughout their early elementary years. It's just super common. I don't remember if I got a call or if my child just came home with clothes from the nurse and a little bag, right? I don't remember.
And probably a notification should be made if there is.
Yeah, I think that is standard practice when there's an accident. I think the ones where it becomes tricky is if despite all of this, you have the student that shows up who is still in pull-ups and not trained, and it's every day at 11 o'clock, we're doing a changing. I would think that would be a more blanket inform to the family of hey, look, we know we're not there yet. We're going to work with you. So-and-so is going to do the change every day at 11, coming up with a plan. What are you doing on your end? This is what we're doing on our end. So that wouldn't be a daily call when it's a daily occurrence, but for an accident. So,
But should it be a daily call if it's a daily occurrence and the child doesn't have an IEP or 504 for some reason? I understand if you're in the process of it, we all know, right? But if you're not in the process of obtaining the documentation to make sure that we have these services, should the parent know? Because sometimes these types of daily accidents are not because of a developmental issue, they're because of some other issue that's happening at home.
you can put that. I have no objection to adding a contact piece.
Because notification can be an email, it can be a note, it can be a call.
I'm looking at Ms. Lanfear's face and wondering if I'm overreacting.
I was just thinking of, parents that might get this kind of call day after day, come pick up your child, come pick up your child.
meant
Yeah, I don't think it has to be come pick up the child.
I meant a notification that your child had an accident and
right.
they needed a change of clothes today or something.
Well, I mean, they might read it as come and get them or some, I mean, I don't know. Would that be a possibility that a child that has accidents every day and the school is contacting the parents every day, that the parents will take that as they shouldn't even be in school?
I mean, I think that's at the point where if a student is having an accident every day, then there has to be some discussion
happening.
between the school and the parents to work out, why this is happening and to possibly get an IEP in place to help the student.
Yeah, I'd imagine if that, when it's to that type of scenario, there would be some sort of, a meeting would have happened, and it's probably not a call or an email, but probably a daily log.
Okay.
I would imagine would be how that would be handled. That would go home so the parents could see, okay, this is what it looked like today, and then probably some progress meetings of,
Okay.
all right, where are we in 3 weeks with this? And
So I think I would be happier with the last sentence if we changed and to or. So if at any time a staff member feels the situation warrants parent attention or student dismissal, parent contact will be made.
yep.
And I would like to change parent to parent/guardian. Everywhere it says parent.
What did we decide about preschool?
I think we leave preschool in. We know that preschool will have more exceptions than kindergarten, but it's probably good to have it in as, again, parents getting prepared for school, that there's the expectation. And now that we switched it from, the must to an expectation, I think we're fine leaving preschool in.
What do you think? I keep looking at you and not talking in my microphone.
I'm not really sure. I think that if we're setting an expectation, but not saying that they can't come to school, I think it's probably fine to leave preschool in there. I would like to maybe over the next, after this, if it goes into effect, just see some data about what happens when this is put in, how it works out, how the parents feel about it, how the teachers feel about it. and to follow up and make sure that we're making the right decision on how we're wording it and what we're trying to, if we're accomplishing what we're trying to accomplish.
Do you mean next fall? Or, so I make sure I understand.
Yeah, next fall would be good, or maybe towards the end, maybe right before Christmas, something like that.
Yeah, I would imagine it would take a couple
Yeah.
months to
Yeah.
figure out, like, how many students, I don't even know how you would track how many students came in with IEPs that wouldn't have otherwise had IEPs, but
I think we could probably track new referrals that came out of registration, right? I think
Yeah,
that
that
would be
makes
really
sense.
interesting data.
I do really like the idea of the welcoming center and the ability to kind of guide, or not guide, refer people to services sooner than the second week in September when all the other stuff is happening.
Yeah, I mean,
Right,
if we're viewing this as a way to help families, then why would we limit it to kindergarten? If some people can get the help sooner in preschool, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, a number of times I've had the opportunity, and kind of, usually it's at like a kindergarten screening, or you've registered, I get to meet you, and you can flag a lot in those early moments before kindergarten starts of, like, hey, do you have a minute? Do you want to chat? And then it'll be, parents will share other information, and you can really steer them towards some other resources. You can steer them towards being able to get an IEP set before school starts, and that really makes all the difference for kids. I think early intervention is really important, so hopefully this will help along that journey.
Okay. I'm just writing down kind of notes for Ms. Kinsella and Ms. Porter about all of the stuff we just talked about. Mr. Pasca also has written it on a piece of paper that he will hand them. But for the minutes, and if they listen to this, I have it written down, kind of, here's what we're doing. Oh, I forgot that line. See, I'm not that great. So if you could just bear with me for one more minute. Talk amongst yourselves.
I just want to say thank you for being willing to hear my concerns and stuff. I appreciate it.
Oh, I mean, I think it's important that, I would rather have us come up with something that we can all get behind than push through something that is divisive, that might not meet the needs of all of our staff and our families, right? And we may find that this is not great and we have to change it again. I mean, that's the great thing about policies. Paragraph 2, we're rearranging. Move to after. And capitalize. Capitalize 1. And then the third change is in the paragraph 3, change and to or. And then throughout, parent to parent/guardian, or parent and guardian, or parent or guardian. Okay. All right, so the motion, I'm going to make the motion. I move that we send it to the full board with all of the amendments we just discussed, and I wrote down and Mr. Posca wrote down.
Second.
Okay. Wait, no, I made the motion. HR, second. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, great. It passes 3-0. Woo!
Thank you for being willing to work on that one. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. We're going to have to do this all over again with the explanations at the full board next week. So, but I feel like we've hammered it down a little bit. Hopefully it won't come back, but we'll find out. Okay, so the next policy on the agenda is BDE, committees and delegates. This is our overarching policy on what committees we have. We also have the sealed minutes review committee, which I think is what we decided to name it. We just added it. I think that's the only change.
Correct.
Nothing in this policy said anything about how often people have to meet, so
Right.
I didn't think we needed to make any other changes based on 2 weeks ago's meeting. No, all right. So I move that we approve it as presented.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, passes 3-0. So then, every other committee we have has its own policy that says what it does. Mr. Pasca and Ms. Kinsella pulled up what the law says that the committee has to do, or what the law says about reviewing sealed minutes, and they made it into a policy. This is brand new. We've never had this policy before, but it basically says that the purpose of this policy is to make sure that every 10 years, sealed minutes are reviewed, and then either the non-public, the sealed minutes committee members will vote on whether or not they should be unsealed, or whether or not they should stay sealed, or whether or not they should be kind of part unsealed and kept sealed, and that they make that recommendation to the full board, who then decides.
Do you guys know the date by which we're supposed to have this done?
So we had until 2033 to start the process, but that also means we have until 2033 to review all the ones that are existing.
So get started now.
So I thought we have minutes in Nashua going back to the 70s or the 60s. There are minutes of the public meetings going back to the 1800s. But for sealed minutes, Ms. Kinsella pulled them all. It was a huge project. I think Ms. Porter probably was involved as well. So Ms. Kinsella and Ms. Porter pulled all of the old ones, many of which were handwritten. They got them all scanned and organized and collated and beautiful for the sealed minutes committee to start reading them. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm like an unapologetic gossip. Like, I am dying to know what's in all of those. But I also am interested to see, like, how have minutes changed over time? Because it used to be the chair just wrote it down. We didn't have the form until a few years ago. So, like, I'm fascinated. Yeah. And then it'll be really interesting to see what the sealed minutes committee decides. There is some guidance from the New Hampshire Municipal Association, because this law applies to us and the Board of Aldermen and any municipal board. So all the boards and all of everywhere have to be doing this. And it'll be interesting to see, like, at what point does something sealed to protect the reputation of someone not on the board no longer matter? And I don't have a good answer for that. So I don't know. I think it's really interesting, and I'm excited. Does anybody have anything that they think should be added or taken away from the policy?
I'm just trying to look, I guess the one thing is that the unsealed committee here, we don't have like public meetings.
That's a good point that maybe we should add. So the sealed non-public minutes review committee should start their meetings in public. They should say, we're having a meeting, they should write it down, what time it opens. And then
then-
they should go into non-public, use the non-public meeting minutes template, which we're out of. Ms. Kinsella, we're out of non-public meeting template, to record their work, and then go back into public at the end of it and document on the public minutes what their recommendation is. Because that information has to be public so it can come to the full board.
And then nothing is unsealed until it gets
Until it gets to the full
approval.
board. So that should be the process. So when this committee meets, it needs to also be publicly noticed that you're having the meeting. It doesn't have to be here. It probably makes more sense to have it at central office in a conference room with a computer. But theoretically, if the public wanted to come, they could come for the beginning, then step out for the duration of the review, and then come back in for the vote if they wanted. I wouldn't put it on television because that would be some really boring hour and a half of television. The other thing I will say is that I believe, because it's a standing committee, we have our policy that says that standing committees meet for 90 minutes. So that should be the expectation for length
For the meetings.
for the meetings. So do you want to add in there that that these meetings should start and end in public? Or is that just an expectation that,
I think that's just an
practice.
expectation. I mean, right, there's nothing on the other, I mean, it's all covered elsewhere, right? About meetings being public and.
Yes, we have a
non-public.
policy on
So,
that.
right,
Yep.
so we don't need to repeat that there.
and then, and I would suggest for like the first meeting of your non-public minutes review committee, I don't like the name of it. I would suggest that you guys look over the municipal association's, guidelines on it. And then also you can look at the exceptions to, or the right to know law exceptions, right? Because there's a lot of them. We have some on our agendas for our main board meeting, but there's a bunch more.
Right.
So you guys hopefully will get really familiar with what all those are, so that when you decide, because you'll have to write in your motion,
Why.
it's staying sealed under this portion of RSA
Yep.
93A1, whatever. I really want to go to that. It sounds really fun.
Should it just be minutes review committee? Do we need to have sealed non-public on there, or is it?
I think it needs to say either sealed or non-public.
So we couldn't change it to like the historical gossip committee?
Oh my God, that would be awesome.
Perfect.
I do believe I grabbed the title for this policy from the RSA.
Okay.
Okay.
So I just tried to stick with the RSA, so
There you go. We'll just
Do you
call it
have
the
strong feelings about it?
I do not. I was just trying to show the impetus of where this came from.
All right. Yeah, maybe it's because some organizations call them sealed minutes and some call them non-public meeting minutes. Whew, that's a mouthful. All right. Anything else? Okay. My only thing is on formatting. I don't like the different, I don't like that it goes 1, 2, 3 and then dots. I'd rather have it do 1, 2, 3, ABC or whatever. But that's just personal preference for formatting. I don't think it needs a motion. I'm looking at all of our other policies and that's how they go, 1, 2, 3, and then ABC, or sometimes little I's.
Does the NHSBA have a sample of these yet?
Not yet.
No.
There were a lot of legal changes last year. I'm going to tell you guys a silly story. I went to the Education Policy Committee last week up at the State House, And someone had written a bill to require a logic class for high school graduation. And the Education Policy Committee is the one that votes on that stuff. The chair of the New Hampshire State School Board was there, and somebody from the Department of Education was there, and they were debating the merits of this. And then I was like, guys, you passed this law 2 years ago, and we all updated our policies in November. Like, because there have been so many bills that like people have lost track of it. So a course in logic in order to graduate is required for incoming freshmen next year. And Nashua passed the policy, like the school board wrote up a sample policy. We passed our, like last spring, we passed our policy in November. Districts are writing the curriculum right now to like. Right. No. I'm sure someone in the room other than me caught it, but I was flabbergasted. So I think the School Board Association has been busy. So anyways, I move that we pass the sealed non-public minutes review committee policy, which is BDEF.
I second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, I know that was an aside, but it's been a week and I'm like, come on, people. Okay, so the next policy is EBB, which is school safety. And it hasn't been all that long, I don't think, since we updated this one, just a couple years. But the Ed 306s made some updates, which really kind of, a lot of it is the same. It's just in a different format. So if you did a side-by-side of what we have redlined out versus what is now read in, I don't know that there's a lot different.
Nope, there's not. I think we just did this. This policy was updated in August of 2022. The Nashua policy was updated in June of 2022, so it was a little off, but everything was still in there. Much of it had just talking about calling it the emergency operations plans, and the other, if you remember from probably a recent policy we did where we kind of defined what school property would consist of. That's now what this update consists of.
Oh, okay. All right, good. And Mr. Lassard said we're already in compliance with all of this. There's nothing here that will change his practice?
Correct.
Okay. Questions or comments?
Is it a significant change that that we added in the comprehensive safety program might not be a single consolidated document? I was just wondering because it's red and also bold, so I don't know.
I think it's more of when my conversations with Mr. Lassard about this, every school has its own emergency operations plan. Mm-hmm. So in what you're going to see, I think there's a date. I think it's by October 1st or October 15th. I think we'll see that in the next one when it has to be submitted to the state. So Mr. Lassard works with building principals over the summer at the beginning of the school year to update the emergency operations plan, which is really specific to each school.
Okay.
And so, some of the districts might be a little smaller, but a district such as this size, what you're doing at Ledge Street might be a little bit different than what you're doing at Nashua High School North.
Okay.
And are these emergency operation plans non-public, like not subject to the right to know?
Correct.
Okay. Because we want them to be confidential between us and the emergency services, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, then I move that we approve school safety EBB as presented this evening.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, great. So you'll notice at the top of the policies, under the letters, it says also references, and then it lists all the other policies. So when Mr. Posca and I pull one that has a bunch of see alsos at the top, we like to pull those too, because if there's changes, we want to make sure that we get the changes everywhere that they would apply and not just like leave things dangling that aren't updated. So he pulled EBBB, which is accident reports, which was also updated in 2022 when the last one, because this is just our common practice to pull them all. And he went over them with Mr. Lassard, and they compared it to the minor language changes from EBB, and they did not recommend any changes. But I'm still bringing it forward, and then we can say that we reviewed it, whether we make changes or not, it'll update the date. So then it won't be out of, you know what I mean? Out of line, right? Okay. Questions or concerns? All right, so I move that we approve EBBB.
Do we have to approve, or since it's not changing?
I recommend that we, that we indicate that we reviewed it.
That we reviewed it, okay.
Yeah, with no changes. Because that will allow us to update the website to say that it was last approved on today.
Today, okay.
Well, when it goes to the full board.
Yep.
Because the state law says that we have to have a comprehensive policy. Our book of policies has to be reviewed every 4 years. And so we have a lot of policies. Some don't get reviewed every 4 years, but we're supposed to look at them every 4 years. And so this resets the clock for 4 years from now.
Okay.
Questions? No concerns? Okay. So the motion is to approve E with 3 Bs. I made the motion. Mr. Johnson, you
I will
seconded?
second, yep.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, so no, I'm going to just indicate that there's no changes. The next one is EBCA, which was previously called Emergency Operations Plan, and now will be called the Crisis Prevention and Emergency Response Plan, no, Emergency Operations Plan, because it is wait, why did we do that? Because we pulled it because of EBB, right?
We pulled it because of EBB and also because of the next policy, EBCH, that we're going to recommend.
Oh, gotcha. And the EB, I'm looking at all my notes. EBCH is required. Oh, and then there's some tangential ones too there. Okay, got it. So EBCA, we pulled up what the School Boards Association has recommended and compared it to what we have. And so they have some updated language based on RSA 153A 28 regarding defibrillators, which I think we had a whole policy just on defibrillators in the past. And then they said you don't need that policy, and now it's in here.
Yes, there's something in that, but like as I said before, part of this was also with the emergency response plans. This is where I kind of referenced the date before, so we have to submit our updated EOPs to the state by October 1st. So this is something that it did put a date on it and codified it in that manner. It also ties into the next policy we're going to talk about, which is a chemical safety and chemical hygiene plan, which we'll get into in a moment. But there was some verbiage in there about that as well that came out within the last year.
So on the bottom of page 1, it says that the school building principals, when they review it, they need to submit the plan to the superintendent by the 1st of October. And then superintendent has to review it and submit it to the state, by October 15th. Is that enough time for the superintendent to look at them?
It's the superintendent and their designee, so a lot of the times the principals are working directly with Chris Lassard.
Okay.
Over the course of this is kind of a process that kind of, and that occurs over the summer where they're updating some things there, so kind of some minor tweaks. Let's say, in a building that, I'll make an example of McCarthy. When McCarthy came online a couple of years ago, it necessitated a major change in updating that emergency operations plan.
Oh, right.
So now, if you put in a new program or you redesignated a classroom, there might be some minor tweaks in that plan based upon how you're going to work on maybe evacuate the buildings, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of times it's just minor tweaks, but it's been reviewed by the principal, the assistant principal, works with Chris Lasad. Mr. Lasad then kind of sits down with the superintendent and say, this is what we got for every school. Here are the changes, or here are the not changes that we're doing for the current year.
So assuming this also applies with the new vestibules in the
Correct.
schools? Yep.
Correct.
Yep. Okay. And I do appreciate that it still has in here the expectation that there'll be a relationship between emergency services and the district. Because I really think that hand-in-hand coordination is what keeps everybody safe. All right, so any questions? Anybody else? All right, so I move that we approve EBCA, the Crisis Prevention and Emergency Response Plan, as it was presented this evening.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and then this is the one, sorry, I got ahead of myself. This is the one, the Chemical Safety and Chemical Hygiene Plan. We are proposing letters EBC each. So Mr. Posca included in here at my request one of our chemical hygiene plans. The middle schools and the high schools each have their own plan. But we didn't have a policy that said, hey, this is what our plan is. And the state is now requiring that we have a policy that says what the plan is. The state is requiring that we have a policy that says that we will make a plan, basically. Does that make sense? So the policy doesn't have specifics. The policy says the board directs the superintendent and designee to work with everybody to make a plan. And then, which we already have, and I thought it would be helpful to see that we do have these plans. This isn't coming out of nowhere, that he's making it up. But some of the plans don't have all the details that the new law is requiring, because most of the plans are about lab safety. And the new policy has other things in it as well. It really covers groundskeeping and custodial services and things like, if we're using like rodenticides or cleaning supplies, like it's much more overarching. So what I would suggest is that we pass the policy saying that we need to develop these overarching plans, knowing that we have some that meet part of it but not all of it, and then have administration get back to us with what the plans actually are. And then I had some questions for our intrepid team here about whether or not we want to make those plans big P policies, like as a rider to this, or if we want them to be school specific and be small Ps. I have two thoughts I have two places in my brain. Like, part of me really hates, for example, rodenticides, and would like to have a policy saying that the district isn't going to do that because we have small children and blah, 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 and the effect on the environment. And then the other part of me thinks I should stay in my lane and not subject these individual plans to board approval. So I'm really struggling with it.
If I could, when I met with Ms. Raymond in preparation for this, I go back to a comment that Mr. Lampier said earlier. We have all these in our practices right now. So in essence, this isn't breaking news. We have all this in place right now. We have been tasked with formalizing this policy here, and that's why I'm bringing this forward at this time. As I demonstrated and kind of met with Ms. Raymond and showed her the example of what a school chemical hygiene plan looks like, that's the template of something that's in place. The NHSBA has also given, provided some other feedback on what the template should be. The challenge is now, it's not just working with, the science lab teachers. It might be working with Mr. Smith in his department. It might be working with Ms. Benoit in food services and what they're doing. And as Ms. Raymond said, might even be involved with what we're working, utilizing on the ground. So there's a lot of other people who have to get there for that template that we have versions thereof in place. So the recommendation at this time was to at least bring the policy forward that has to be coming forward here. But that next step is then, working on that practices and how are we going to kind of formalizing it, all of that into one template going forward. And that's kind of where I asked for some, it's going to take a little bit of time to get there. And I think that's led to Ms. Raymond's question, like, what should that look like going forward?
Right, do we want it to come back to us? Do we want it to come back to us for informational purposes? Or do we want it to come back to us for our approval and playing with it? Because I certainly don't have the expertise to say what's appropriate for chemical safety.
And is there
But I'm
anything,
curious about what the plan will have for things like cleaning supplies and food storage and
so is there anything required, though, that we would need to have in the main policy, like an overall?
So we're required to approve this one that says superintendent or designee will create a plan that identifies and creates an inventory of hazardous materials, that has provisions outlining the response to it, where they're going to be stored, used, disposed, et cetera. Provisions to minimize the use of toxic chemicals for cleaning or pest controls. So this says, this is what our responsibility is to adopt a policy that directs the superintendent to make sure all this
To
happens.
make sure that's covered.
We don't have an obligation under the law to then look at
Be
the plan
specific.
and approve that plan. Our job is just to tell him to make the plan. But I'm curious about the plan, and I'm wondering if the plan ought to be a public document or not. And I don't know what the answer to that is until the plan is made. Does that make sense?
Right.
And then I might not know what the answer
Slightly
is.
different based on each building, or?
I mean, I would think there'd be some consistencies with probably the cleaning products that are used by our cleaning staff, as well as some consistency that's utilized by in our kitchen. And I think, I smirk a little bit, because a former middle school principal, when you think of a lab, maybe baking soda and some water. We're not going too crazy here. Obviously, as you get to the high school, there might be some other things. I would tell you, when we were closing Elm Street to get ready to McCarthy, there were some
sure.
interesting things that were found in some of those science closets as we get forward. So I can certainly see the need for documenting what's available here. And I do think that we're doing that. But again, as it goes up at the elementary level, when they're doing science labs, it might be a water and straw. I don't think it's going to be a significant, list of what we have here. But I think to Ms. Raymond's point, just as you go through the EBCH and what they're looking for, it's probably bringing in those other parties to actually, what does that look like? And probably what you see for cleaning supplies at one school, probably what you see cleaning supplies in all schools.
And I think that to me, I think that the expectations on here are the cleaning supplies that fit within this guidelines, right? Like, I don't really think that we care if they pick Clorox wipes or Lysol wipes or some other off-brand wipes, right? The point is that the wipes be antibiotic or antibacterial, or whatever. I would like to see the plan. I just don't know that we have to vote on the plan.
It says the list of things that it needs to have. Number 11 is the requirement for an annual chemical hygiene plan, audit, and report. So I don't think we need to put it into the policy that we have to vote on it, but I think if you wanted to ask for it to be presented to us, there's going to be an audit and report done every year. So I think that's up to, I don't think it needs to be that we have to vote on it, but I think that we could certainly ask for it if we wanted it.
Okay. Because it also says, like, there's a biannual review, right? Like, so the chemical, you audit it, but then there's a biannual review And the plan, oh, it says right there on the last one, the updated plan and procedures should be provided to the board no later than the start of each school year. Great.
There you go.
All right, never mind. I've talked around in circles because I didn't read D. All right, I move that we approve EBCH, the Chemical Safety and Hygiene Plan, and that we request the district to have the actual procedures and protocols to us by September.
It's fair.
Second.
Okay, great. Hold on. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I gotta write that down, and request to provide, what's it called? Plan and procedures.
Hygiene plan.
Okay, great. So there's a couple other things I wanted to bring up quickly because we have a little bit of time. I have gotten a couple of phone calls and emails just in the last, I don't know, I would say 4 or 5 days, like before the vacation before the long weekend, with questions about discipline and how the schools, the various schools, respond to student conflicts within the buildings. And I don't know if that would come to our committee or someplace else, but the questioning has really been about, and I pulled up JIC, which is our discipline report, and it's our discipline policy is very clear, like, if you do this, this is the consequence, right? But the questioning was really about what happens when students are, for example, fighting with each other. Is there a policy or procedures that the schools follow about who intervenes, when they intervene, and when and if our SROs or further law enforcement personnel get involved? And these are not questions that I was able to find answers to in our policies, so I thought I would throw it out here while we're together, and then, I don't know, follow up on it.
Well, SROs are really only available at the high schools on
Okay.
a regular basis. I think intervention comes based upon the level of the discrepancy or the issue that it's occurring on a regular basis. Usually they're verbal cues to cease and desist. At times, that doesn't work. And then for the safety of the people involved, it does have to be addressed by usually administrators stepping in.
Right, because I mean, I would worry, it's interesting because my first few years on the board, I think every single board meeting, we talked about discipline and fighting. And there was a lot of concern in the community and staff about fighting at the high schools. And then post-COVID, not so much. There was a little bit, and then I hadn't heard about a fight probably in a year more, 18 months. And now all of a sudden I've gotten a bunch of calls about fighting and whose responsibility it is to intervene, and what happens if children are injuring each other. And I think it's really focused more at the secondary level because the elementary kids, they're small. Pretty much anyone can separate them. But by the time you get to middle and high school, sometimes the students are physically larger than the staff. And, what are the expectations for staff, and what are the expectations that parents should have about, when injuries happen? And it might be an offline conversation, but I thought I'd throw it out there in case there's a policy that I'm missing.
We do not have in essence, we shouldn't be fighting in school.
Right? I
think
agree.
that's the overarching piece, and I think,
And it's not a discipline question because the question was, the JIC kind of covers it.
Yeah. JIC kind of gives us the parameters from which the administrators are working with that, and there are times where, it could be considered assaultive behavior based upon how it's reviewed and how the witnesses, and that brings it to another level as well. But I think to the point, I originally made it that, we're in school for learning, not for fighting. And again, I think, these things happen periodically. It is not a common occurrence, but when it does, we think we have to address it.
Right. I mean, it's not developmentally unexpected for kids to have issues with each other that they then decide to impulsively resolve physically. We hope it doesn't happen, but adolescents are adolescents, right? They're not known for restraint.
I mean, I think a big component that sort of gets, I don't know if it gets pushed aside or something, is prevention. Is the, and then that's not probably a big P, that's a small P type of thing. But having things in place to help prevent those situations from occurring.
Mr. Posca, do you know if there's still a restorative justice or a mediation that the students do? Like a few years ago, there was something that a group of students were doing where if there was some students who were not getting along and it was interfering with their ability to learn, they could go in and have some
I think
mediation.
the administrators and social workers and school psychs are constantly, when conflicts arise, how can we kind of address this conflict, much to Mr. Johnson's point, prior to something happening? And communication is the key. If there is a concern, let the administrators dealing with it as opposed to going out and trying to address it on your own. And, to the point that's been made previously, that's tough for a 14, 15, 16-year-old to do, at that time. So trying to work with them about, again, let the adults kind of handle this and bring them. If you have concerns, ask parents to bring that to the administrators so we can work with them to address those situations on a more regular basis. And that's a lot of what our administrators are doing at the secondary level. Kind of some things behind the scenes so that things don't happen.
I seem to recall when my kids were in middle school that there was an issue with some of their peers where the school had worked with the parents to separate the children, like that they started with making sure that they didn't have classes or lunches at the same time, and then I think it escalated to like having them split schools because we have 3 middle schools. Does that kind of thing, is that still on the table? Or is it just not something that really happens anymore?
Each situation is so unique, and I think that's the challenge here. I think that, I think there's always some solutions or some ways to look at some things differently. Sometimes you have more options than others. And I think it's, how can we quell a situation? How can we address a situation? Because we want to keep it as a safe school environment, but we want students to be able to do what they need to do when they come to school, which is learning. So that should be the focus when they get there. So how can we take those other aspects out of play?
Okay. Thank you. I know I just threw that on you and you handled it brilliantly. This is what happens when people call me on long weekends. So we have been working through our spring, summer, and fall updates from the School Boards Association. I don't know what we have left. Mr. Posca and I will sit down and go over it, but I think we've gotten through almost all of
I
it.
think we're, EBCH was the last one to bring forward, so I think we're just at the end of that, and I think it's just a matter of, I've had a couple things come up that I'll be working with Ms. Raymond on for February, and probably have at least 4 or 5 policies coming forward at that time.
Okay, great. And then I am available if anybody has ideas or things that they want us to talk about. You can always email me and I will bring it to Mr. Posca and we will add it to an agenda. Oh,
I was just looking, the Manchester School Board, they have a student conduct committee, and they have presentations on student conduct data, like the most recent one was September to December. Then they also had a presentation on chronic absenteeism and truancy communication plans. And then they actually look at a school report card. They had a school report card presentation from the Manchester School of Technology. And those are just some of the things that were on their most recent agenda.
yeah, Rochester has one as well, a discipline committee. And I know that state law requires if a student is going to be suspended for more than 10 days, that the district administration bring it to the board and the board is supposed to vote on it. And I know that's where some of these conduct committees and discipline committees came out of, was for those reviews. In the 8 years I've been here, Nashua has not come to me and said, hey, we want to suspend a kid for 20 or 40 days without having them come back at all. So we haven't had a discipline committee. we just updated the policy on committees. We could talk to the board about whether we want one, but I don't know. I don't know. We used to talk about it all the time at the board level. We'd get reports about,
I think that maybe we could, if you were interested, we could ask Dr. Andre for more information on it. And then in the meantime, we could maybe, if you were interested in pursuing this, look at the Manchester Board of Education and see what they're doing and see if you think it would be something that would work here or that you'd be interested in.
yeah, my concern is creating an issue where there isn't one. Yeah. Right? I feel like we're going to have a discipline committee, and now all of a sudden discipline incidents increase because of a perception that
Right. You
that kids are out of control.
create the
You create the problem you're trying to
Thing, right.
solve, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, yeah.
And I also think, I mean, it also is very school specific. I mean, high school compared to elementary school to middle school, and even the different schools, how discipline is handled is really,
Well, it should be consistent.
it should be consistent, but then there's certain circumstances. I mean, middle school is going to be different than high school.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's
You know,
developmentally appropriate.
Right. So it's, one of the things, I'd maybe bring it up with as far as the high school level, maybe bring something up with student governments about, them looking into having some ideas for,
That's an interesting thought.
intervention and prevention at their level, the peer level. One of the things I was an activities coordinator at college, and one of the things I did was oversee student government, and one of their roles was to act as mediation when problems arose between either student or student and professor, they would be involved in that process.
Yeah. Perhaps what I might do is reach out to Dr. Andre and Ms. Bishop and ask about, we haven't heard about discipline in a long time. Are there any reports that they could bring to a future board meeting? We also have a couple of new board members, and I think it would be interesting for them too. I would just, in the absence of an emergency, put it off after budget. Because that's a lot.
Fair enough.
All right, I don't have anything else for tonight. All right, so, motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so we are adjourned at 7:20 PM. Thank you for indulging me.